With Disney Plus finally bringing Moon Knight to TV screens, it's time to ask, what do you really know about the Avatar of Khonshu? Whether it's his origins as a villain or the TV show his alter ego developed for himself, here is the untold truth of Moon Knight. Moon Knight suffers from dissociative identity disorder, once known as multiple personality disorder. Rather than the usual hero/everyman dichotomy we're used to with Superman and Clark Kent or Spider-Man and Peter Parker, Moon Knight has at least 3 civilian names.
The voice in your head. There's chaos in you.
There's taxi driver Jake Lockley, millionaire Stephen Grant, and finally the mercenary Marc Spector. While he plays at using the personas simply as covers and tools, it's clear even in the very beginning of Moon Knight that they're much more. The 3 identities not only speak and act differently, but different people in Moon Knight's life also choose who they believe is a dominant persona. Moon Knight's love interest Marlene, for example, is in love with Stephen Grant and always refers to him as Steven, whether he's wearing his mask or not. But the name co-creator Doug Mensch saw as marking Moon Knight's dominant persona was Marc Spector, and Spector's name came from an employee in a Manhattan comic book shop. Mensch couldn't remember the name of the store when he told the story, but he did say it was the best comic book shop in Manhattan. At the time, Mensch said he often used the names of people in his life for new characters, and a comic shop employee named Marc Spector asked him when Mensch was going to name a character after him. At the time, Mensch was working on an issue of Werewolf by Night with a villain he needed a name for, and so the real-life Spector got his wish. Mensch and artist Don Perlin first brought Moon Knight to life in 1975's Werewolf by Night issue 32, and he was no selfless defender of the innocent or Avatar of Khonshu. Marc Spector was a mercenary hired by a clandestine group known only as a committee to capture Jack Russell, the man cursed to transform into a werewolf on nights of the full moon. It was the committee who gave Spector his name, his costume, and even silver gauntlets and a silver truncheon specifically designed to hurt the savage werewolf. By the end of Werewolf by Night issue 33, Moon Knight showed at least a hint or two of the hero he would become. While he fulfills his contract by capturing the werewolf and bringing him to the committee, the accusing pleas of Russell's friends and the desperation of the captive werewolf convince him he's on the wrong side. He frees the werewolf from his cage and helps him escape. Still, he doesn't exactly come off like Superman. The last time we see him in Werewolf by Night issue 33, Moon Knight is crouched on a roof ledge and triumphantly holding up a stack of cash he lifted from the committee. To Mensch's surprise, Marvel editors kept asking him to do more with Moon Knight. So the character he'd created as nothing more than an antagonist for a werewolf comic started turning up in guest appearances in Spectacular Spider-Man, Defenders, and Marvel 2-in-1. Then Mensch was tapped for writing duties on the black and white Hulk magazine, which eventually included a 7-page backup feature starring Moon Knight. Ultimately, Mensch and artist Bill Sienkiewicz, who had jumped aboard during the Hulk backups, were assigned the first monthly Moon Knight title. Mensch wrote a new, more heroic origin story for the hero, connecting him to Egyptian myth and solidifying Marc Spector as a mercenary seeking redemption. While the first volume was cut after 38 issues, it enjoyed the honor, along with Kazar, of being one of Marvel's first direct sales comics. In 1982, more comics were appearing in comic book specialty shops, and fewer were being sold in newsstands, grocery stores, pharmacies, gift shops, and toy stores. There was a push to cut out distributors and sell directly to specialty retailers, and Moon Knight and Kazar were Marvel's flagship titles for that push. Comic book fans still argue whether the move to the direct market was a good one, but for Mensch and Sienkiewicz, it meant more royalties because they didn't need to sell as many copies for the comic to turn a profit. It also meant more work, since the comics were printed with only in-house ads, and the creative team had to turn in 25 pages of story every issue instead of 19. Artist Bill Sienkiewicz, whose unique style is as recognizable as it can be jarring, began his comic book career drawing Moon Knight. Sienkiewicz was a second-year art student when he brought a portfolio to the offices of DC Comics, but it unknowingly picked precisely the wrong time to try and join the DC team. The comics company was going through rough times and was about to cut loose many of the artists it already had. Still, Sienkiewicz's talent was evident, so Batman artist Neil Adams, whose art Sienkiewicz readily admits he based his early work on, called Jim Shooter at Marvel Comics and told the controversial editor-in-chief he had a new artist for him. Both Sienkiewicz and Mensch guessed it was at least in part the comparison to Adams and to the enduring industry opinion that Moon Knight was Marvel's Batman that paired Sienkiewicz and Mensch. Regardless, Sienkiewicz proved his talent, and Moon Knight readers watched the artist's work evolve into something closer to the distinct style that made the artist such an integral figure in franchises like Daredevil, New Mutants, and Legion. According to Mensch, Sienkiewicz had trouble meeting deadlines on Moon Knight. Editor Dennis O'Neill's solution was to tell Mensch to write a 7-page backup story that O'Neill would give to another artist. Then that backup would be ready for some month when Sienkiewicz absolutely needed it to meet the deadline. According to Mensch, once he wrote the backup called Hit It, O'Neill screwed up. Instead of sending the backup to a different artist, he sent it to Sienkiewicz. Sienkiewicz told Mensch Hit It was the best thing he'd written, and the artist was convinced that, using larger panels and other methods, he could stretch it into a full-length story. He succeeded and submitted Hit It as the main story for Moon Knight issue 26. Unfortunately, he turned in the pages so late that O'Neill called Mensch into the Marvel offices from his home in Pennsylvania to script the pages in a closet-sized room with a typewriter. Hit It was about a man randomly attacking every person he meets, and readers eventually learn the criminal's violence stems from severe childhood abuse. Sienkiewicz suffered his own trauma from childhood, which at least in part explained his drive to turn what was supposed to be a 7-page story into something else. Moon Knight issue 26 marked the emotional end of the series for Sienkiewicz, though he stayed on for 4 more issues and drew the covers for the remainder of the series. Before a Moon Knight series was announced as part of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there had been noise about an adaptation for years. The name Marc Spector was mentioned on an episode of the short-lived Blade the series. Then Marvel Studios partnered with No Equal Entertainment to develop a show based on the hero. The series never came to fruition, however, nor did long-running rumors claiming Moon Knight would be added to the list of critically acclaimed Marvel Netflix shows.
I'm not seeking penance for what I've done, Father. I'm asking forgiveness for what I'm about to do.
Similarly, key players of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Netflix Marvel shows toyed with the idea of getting a Moon Knight adaptation made. One such person is Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn. He tweeted in January 2017 that, while his workload prevented him from making a Moon Knight film, he floated a premise for it past Marvel Studios. Additionally, Netflix Daredevil showrunner Stephen S. DeKnight told IGN in 2018 that he'd be interested in working on a Moon Knight show if his schedule allowed for it. Moon Knight may be the first Jewish superhero, though the matter is up for debate. Mensch told Charlie Huston he created the first Jewish superhero, though he also says he didn't begin with that in mind. After naming Moon Knight's mercenary alias after a comic book shop employee, Mensch later learned the real-life Marc Spector was Jewish. So he reasoned Spector must be a Jewish name. Whether or not Moon Knight is the first Jewish superhero depends on several things, including how you define first Jewish superhero. Ben Grimm, also known as the Thing of the Fantastic Four, predates Moon Knight by a decade, though it wasn't revealed he was Jewish until the 2002 issue of Fantastic Four. There's also Doc Samson, who first appeared in a 1971 issue of Incredible Hulk, but his Jewish heritage wasn't discussed until the 1990 issue of the same series. Then there's Magneto and his more heroic children Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Polaris. Those characters and a whole host of other superheroes in and outside of Marvel were created without their heritage being mentioned, but were later confirmed to be Jewish. Whether he's the first Jewish superhero is a matter of debate, but the notion that he's the first openly Jewish superhero is solid. In a very interesting retcon regarding the origins of Moon Knight's weapons and equipment, it turns out that the West Coast Avengers gave the superhero a crucial early lift by a member of the team, Hawkeye. In 1987's West Coast Avengers issue 23, the LA-based team went back in time to ancient Egypt. Once there, they found worshippers of the moon god Khonshu, the god Moon Knight serves under siege. Determined to help the Egyptians defend themselves, Hawkeye designed weapons for them like darts and boomerangs. The issue ends with a cut back to modern times, where we see Marc Spector finding the same weapons his fellow Avenger designed. The origin of the weapons is another example of how different writers and artists help shape the history of Moon Knight. Hilariously, one person who actually has gotten a Moon Knight adaptation off the ground where many others have failed is none other than Marc Spector himself. Issue 1 of Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev's 2010 Moon Knight comic book series debuted Legends of the Khonshu, a television series within the comic developed by Spector. The show very loosely adapts his adventures as a mercenary, along with some of his exploits as Moon Knight. He wasn't overly concerned about getting all the facts right, which leads the show to take some major liberties. That included naming the fictionalized Spectre after Mark's cab driver personality, Jake Lockley. Neither the Moon Knight costume nor name was used at all. presumably to keep Marc's superhero life a secret from the public. While some characters had high expectations from the series, the majority of the people working on Legends seemed to hate it. The big exception to this was Marc himself, though even he became frustrated by the show's numerous production issues. Despite itself, however, Legends of the Khonshu became a success, for a short while anyway. At the end of Bendis and Malieve's 12-issue series, Spector learns from his assistant Annie that Legends has been cancelled after a very short time on the air. Ultimately, it just wasn't profitable enough. Luckily, the winding road to a Moon Knight adaptation has finally ended, thanks to Disney+. Debuting on March 30th, 2022's Moon Knight limited series brings the Fists of Khonshu smashing into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel Studios has made it clear that faithfully adapting the character is a priority. This is represented in the series' trailers, TV spots, and posters confirming Spector's dissociative identity disorder and ties to Khonshu as major elements.
Am I like some sort of secret agent? It's a little more complicated than that.
Similarly, the series' central villains Arthur Harrow and Anton Mogat are also straight out of the comics. Harrow is a physician obsessed with studying pain. Mogat is a Midnight Man, an art thief who dresses similarly to Moon Knight. Headlining the Disney Plus series is Oscar Isaac, who assumes the role of Marvel's moon-themed vigilante. Isaac is, of course, no stranger to big franchises or comic adaptations, having played Poe Dameron in the Star Wars sequel trilogy and En Sabah in X-Men Apocalypse. Furthermore, Isaac is a comic book fan. A graphic novel he's collaborated on, Head Wounds Sparrow, premieres June 21st, 2022. He has expressed a deep affection for the Disney Plus Moon Knight series, and is quoted as saying that it's his baby. Of course, once any major new hero enters a Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's only natural to ask if they'll join Earth's mightiest heroes. While Kevin Feige has called Avengers Endgame the final Avengers movie, the team is still clearly active. They even approached Shang-Chi during the credits of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Moreover, Jeremy Slater, showrunner of the Moon Knight series, has said he'd love to see Marc Spector's costumed alter ego join the Avengers. As fans of Moon Knight's comic appearances know, the character has been on multiple Avengers teams, starting with the fan-favorite West Coast Avengers. Could he be part of a new Avengers team based out west? Or will Spector's time as one of the secret Avengers be adapted into Marvel Cinematic Universe history instead? Alternatively, he could simply become part of the already existing Avengers team. That is, if Valentina Allegra de Fontaine doesn't come to him first to recruit her for her mystery super team. Suffice to say, Moon Knight is not short on options. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite superheroes are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.